Hi, everybody. Welcome to Colorado Inside Out. I'm your host, Dominic Dezzutti. Sometimes you know it's going to be a great show before it starts. I have one of those feelings right now. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get a quick take on the Colorado Democratic Party releasing an ad this week aimed at convincing voters that a number of Republicans running for state Senate are behind the recent controversy brewing in the Jefferson County School Board. Patty Calhoun from Westward, with all of the things that went on in the Jeffco and probably still going on the last few weeks, do you think this will be an effective ad from the Democrats?
It could be if they actually did a better job of tying those specific politicians to the Jeffco School Board. But there is still a lot of anger, a lot of interest out there, and it's not going away. So if they can really tie it specifically to those politicians, although I think Julie Williams takes her guidance from some other planet. But if they could prove that somehow they're all involved, it might have an effect.
Craig Silverman, attorney with Silverman Olivas and radio talk show host at KNUS. What do you think? Is this an effective way to handle Jeffco, where these folks just won their seats a year ago? So do you think it might be a backlash?
Emotions are still running high out there, and I would say that the Democrats have an enthusiasm advantage over the Republicans right now, but this is an evenly split jurisdiction, and there is a problem. And I think it flows from higher education, academia, which is dominated by liberals, the Howard Zinn crowd, and the Ward Churchill types, maybe not as extreme as Ward Churchill. And that drifts down to the high schools, and some people object. You have an action, then a reaction, an overreaction, a grotesque overreaction. It would be nice if we could just get to the middle and some objective history.
Eric Sonderman, political analyst. What do you think of the strategy? Is it going to be effective in Jeffco?
We'll see. It's not the first time guilt by association has been tried, and guilt by association is sometimes effective. There would be an ultimate irony here. Many people believe, and I'm probably one of them, that the reason these three people were elected to the board a year ago and elected by significant margins has to do with Amendment 66, which the Democrats, or not Democrats exclusively, but largely the Democrats put on the ballot. That was the statewide education tax increase that went down in flames and brought out a different demographic to vote than usually votes in some of these off-year school board elections. So on the one hand, you have that phenomenon boosting the conservatives on the board, then maybe there's a reverse phenomenon based on their overreach.
Alicia Caldwell from the editorial page of the Denver Post, wrap it up for us.
Well, I think it's a stretch to try to connect some State House candidates to the school board. I mean, some of them have expressed some support for different Republican or conservative positions out there, but it's really a stretch to try to connect them in a real solid way on ideas. However, I don't think this is really about that. I think this is an attempt to whip up some more enthusiasm for this election, because we all know in the midterms, turnout is everything, especially for the Democrats.
Let's get to it. The U.S. Supreme Court decided on Monday to not hear any appeals on gay marriage ban reversals. The historic decision legalized same-sex marriage in Colorado. Attorney General John Suthers issued a statement saying all 64 county clerks are now required to issue licenses. Patty, this was an historic moment, a big day, but there's been so much momentum on this issue already. It was almost a non-event. Hey, it happened. Okay, great. It's all legal. I was stunned with how quickly history came and went in 1 week. What did you think?
Right. So much action out of inaction. So the U.S. Supreme Court decided not to consider this case, and all of a sudden the floodgates opened. Interesting timing for a couple people. Deborah Johnson at the Denver clerk's office had already decided to have free wedding Wednesdays, so perfect timing. So on Wednesday we had some of the first same-sex couples in Colorado who had already gotten their licenses go in and make it official. Good timing for her, and really interesting stories out there. In another interesting story, my nephew and his husband were down at Arapahoe County Courthouse today getting married, and it went smoothly, although they did say the sign there has some typos, so they need to work on that. But I mean, that's a big family, and it was a great, great moment for them, and so many families across Colorado. And I want to say kudos to John Suthers, too, who I wish was running again for a statewide office instead of, say, mayor of Colorado Springs, because he truly followed the letter of the law all the way through. He did do the challenges because he was defending the proposal that Coloradans had voted for back in 2006. But as soon as the U.S. Supreme Court came down and didn't do anything. Suthers did, and he asked for those stays to be lifted, and that's why we now have many, many more happy couples in Colorado.
Craig, you're the lawyer at the table. Were you surprised about the inaction from the Supreme Court? Everyone thought it was going to have to be decided finally there, maybe next year, maybe next spring, hear about it next fall, and then boom, we have it here before this election day. What did you think?
Wow, you know, those guys on the Supreme Court are pretty smart, and they found a way to do it without having to cast a vote. It's amazing how many times we've sat around this round table through the decades debating this issue, and then to have it end this week with a whimper and not a bang. It is historic, but it was obviously coming. It's the young generations that have no problem with gay marriage. It's older people. So the momentum has long been on the side of gay marriage, and most of us have come around to the realization that for most gay people, it's an immutable characteristic. So you don't want to discriminate against people if it's something they're born with, like being right-handed or left-handed. And so common sense has prevailed. And this is good for the Republicans because it removes it as an issue. And it's been amazing on talk radio and elsewhere how little pushback there is. I think they're glad to have it off the table because it was hurting them. And as young people get older, it was going to hurt them even more.
I know it surprised me on the Republican side of seeing people like Ted Cruz trying to go back and be mad about it. I'm like, you've just been handed a present. Let it go and keep moving. Eric, you've talked about this around this table, like Craig said, for a long time about the momentum was swinging. We were just watching history. It's just a matter of time of when, not if. Did you expect it this quickly?
No, I didn't expect it this quickly. I think we all knew it was going to happen sooner or later, and it happened sooner. And thank God it happened sooner. Craig stole my line about a whimper versus a bang. But that's right. I think we all expected some momentous, historic Supreme Court decision that the whole country gathered around their TV sets or their computers or whatever, this year's version of Brown versus Board or whatever it was. And instead of that momentous decision, it was an indecision that really had the same effect. I would echo Patty's comments about John Suthers. I think he handled himself very responsibly, not politically, but responsibly throughout this whole process of being what you want an attorney general to be, which is not a politician first and foremost, but somebody who is upholding the law. And when the court ruled, or when the court made its policy clear this week by not ruling, he followed suit within hours. One of the couples that was, I think, first in line or near the front of the line at Denver City Hall, somebody I know, Fran Simon, and her partner, or now her spouse, and congratulations to them, and congratulations to hundreds and thousands of others. This is a step society needed to take. It's been incremental, but man, it has been fast incremental. I have never seen public opinion move as rapidly as it has moved on this particular issue.
Well, speaking of that speed, Alicia, I mean, 8 years ago, Colorado voters were preparing to pass the definition of marriage here in Colorado. In less than those 8 years, it's gone. Did the speed surprise you?
Yes, it definitely did. It not once it got going, but it really did seem to just come out of almost nowhere. Just the rapidity of it. I think I and many others were pretty sure it was going to happen, but I was thinking more of a decade-long time frame or more. And the fact that it has not provoked any backlash, seemingly, or very little, is really interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the remaining 20 or so states where it's still not legal, and how quickly those cases are litigated and resolved, and we have a national standard, which I think is the end goal here for most people in the equality movement, and a worthy one.
Mark Udall and Cory Gardner held 3 of their 5 total debates this week at sites throughout the state. Polling for the race remains tight, but fundraising numbers released this week show Gardner with a slight lead over Udall. Craig, it's been fascinating to see them finally debate. I mean, I made the point that they're only debating 5 times for a term that's going to last 6 years, but I've beaten that horse quite a bit. What did you think of the debates you saw this week and of the race so far?
First of all, I haven't had a chance to get mad at Mark Udall for avoiding Channel 12, but let me add my voice to that. I think Udall looks uncomfortable at these debates. That's why he wants to avoid them. I think Cory Gardner has done better, especially since Mark Udall was called by Lynn Bartels Senator Uterus. That had to sting. It seems to be a single-issue campaign, and I think Cory Gardner took a lot of the air out of that tire when he said, I was sitting there with my wife when a commercial came on, and she said, hey, remember when you used to pick up my prescription for birth control pills? Okay, he's not going to take away contraception. He has his personal views, but I think Mark Udall's emphasis on this and his weakness on the Islamic State. Look, we count on government to keep us safe. I didn't realize Mark Udall had missed all those meetings of critical committees. Gardner has scored with that, and you know that he's scored because Mark Udall's been forced to respond on television claiming that he's some kind of war hawk, but that is not going to fly. I think the debates have worked out well for Gardner, and now we know why Mark Udall has ducked a debate here and would just as soon these debates be over.
Eric, the one-issue campaign's been pretty noted out there, and it worked for Ken Buck. That's how he beat, or that's how it worked for Ken. It worked for Michael Bennet beating Ken Buck. It's obviously worked for other candidates. You're even seeing it against Kaufman. You're seeing it come against Beaupre. I've always figured that campaign ads are out there because they're working. If the polling says they're not working, they're gone. It's like pure capitalism. What do you think? Is this an overreach with the Udall campaign?
We'll see if it's an overreach. I mean, it is not new ground they're plowing. We saw it with Michael Bennet as the wedge issue against Ken Buck. Difference is Buck was a little bit more of a willing accomplice in his own demise there through some of his missteps than Cory Gardner certainly handled himself better. And Ken Buck, 4 years later, now running for Congress, has also learned how to handle these issues better as well. We're seeing it in the 6th Congressional District. It is chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Democratic playbook, particularly in Colorado, but all over the country. Some would argue it's all of the Democratic playbook is to drive these issues. I think one thing that is to be determined here is whether they needed at least a chapter 2. You know, maybe not 10 chapters, but at least some secondary issue, or whether they played this card a little too hard and too early, and whether it lost a little bit of its saliency by the time October rolled around. You really have two campaigns here. You have the Udall campaign, you have the Gardner campaign, the whole theme of which is that Udall is in bed with Obama. And then you have the Udall campaign, the whole theme of which is that Gardner is in your bedroom about everything else. And that strikes me as the distinction here. I don't know where this thing is. I really think it is at the margin. I think it is close to a flip of a coin right now. Michael Bennet beat Ken Buck by roughly 20,000 votes in a year that is probably not quite as Republican as this year might be. So the question is Cory Gardner a 20,000 vote better candidate than Ken Buck was, and is 2014 a 20,000 vote better Republican year than 2010 was? That's what it comes down to.
Alicia, if this does go Udall's way, is it a endorsement that if any Democrats running against a Republican, and that Republican happens to be pro-life, just club him over the head over and over and over and over again, and you get your win by 51%? Is it just going to be that's how you win elections from now on?
It'll surely be a go-to play in the playbook. Cory Gardner does not have a great answer on the personhood question, the federal, his backing of the federal measure and differentiating that from the state measures. It's really just not a good answer. Whether he's overplayed that card, I'm not entirely sure. I think beyond the one-issue campaign, this is also going to be a campaign that's defined by turnout efforts. And what is going on in this ground game, I think, will be crucially important to that 20,000 or so vote margin that Eric's talking about. And I think it will be that close. It has the potential to be very, very close. And how and what they're doing on the ground to motivate voters will have everything to do with it. And I think that'll be also part of the playbook going forward.
Patty, we often think that the Colorado electorate is very diverse. We have, third Republicans, third Democrats, third Independents. We're a purple state. We've been that way for a long time. But if this goes Mark Udall's way, is at least a good portion of voters one-issue voters?
Well, I think Mark Udall probably hopes this year they are. I mean, you can't believe these commercials. What they've said, $40 million has been spent on just the Senate race so far. Mm-hmm. Think of what that $40 million could have done for Colorado. We could have bought birth control for everybody. Cory Gardner could have gone and picked it up and handed it out to everybody. We would have a much better state right now because the commercials seem to me to be almost a wash. They're equally disgusting. It's interesting because the candidates themselves are doing very, very negative ads, plus the others coming out of the national campaigns are doing very nasty ads. I don't think they're working. If you're not going to spend $40 million on birth control devices for everyone in Colorado, then I think they should be spending up much more on the ground game, because maybe the person who knocks on your door or makes the phone call would actually be a little more convincing and give you the idea that they care more about what's really happening in your life than we're getting from these candidates right now.
The candidates running for the 6th Congressional District, Mike Coffman and Andrew Romanoff, debated earlier tonight right here on Channel 12. If you missed it, go to cpt12.org to check it out. Views on immigration and healthcare dominated most of the discussion. Eric, you're one of our moderators. You're asking the great questions. What did you think of the debate and the responses?
It was interesting, suffice to say. It was lively. There were a few fun, almost awkward moments between the two of them. These debates are great, Dominic, and you and I have been doing them for a lot of years. And you sit around for the 10 minutes before the debate starts, and people are getting mic'd up and a last sip of water and whatever, and there's all this good feeling and camaraderie. And then you do the intro, and the camera rolls, and by God, it's game on, and punch, counter punch, and et cetera. And that's the way the game is played. I don't know that there was a conclusive winner. There is clearly a contrast in styles. Obviously, there's a contrast in ideology between the two, but there's also a contrast in style. Mike Coffman is who he is. He's a gut fighter. Andrew is a little more academic, almost professorial sometimes about things. They are who they are. This district fascinates me. It has become, yes, it has parts of Arapahoe County that are middle class, upper middle class, but it also has these huge swaths of Aurora that remind me of the John F. Kennedy book, A Nation of Immigrants. And it's not just Latino immigration, it is all kinds of immigration. It's Muslim immigrants, it's African immigrants, it's Russian immigrants. It is a fascinating district. It is right at the margin. We'll see if Andrew Romanoff once again screwed himself, excuse my language, by picking the wrong year to run. That is a risk that is certainly out there, but it was an interesting debate. If viewers didn't catch it live, go to the website.
Alicia, it seems, at least on the airwaves, TV airwaves, we've seen this race kind of take over. It was all Senate and governor, and there's still Senate governor, but campaigns from both these campaigns that are pretty harsh are quite apparent out there. What have you thought about the campaign so far?
Well, you can see the money that's being pumped into this race, and it probably will be the most expensive congressional race in Colorado by the time it's over. They're spending money hand over fist. Romanoff seems to be focusing quite a bit on Coffman's problematic for him, prior positions on immigration. Coffman is struggling to really explain, to pivot gracefully on that issue that is very important to this district, and Eric very eloquently described the composition of this district. Now, Romanoff has his own problems, though. He's still seen as a Denver guy who's a carpetbagger who moved into this district just to fulfill his ambitions for higher office and that sort of thing. So, while I think Romanoff is more aligned philosophically, more than likely, with the majority of the people in that district, he has his issues too. So it's going to be a very close one, and that's reflected in the ads that you mentioned.
Patty, we thought even before the race really started, we have Andrew Romanoff and Mike Coffman. You have two more prolific campaigners in Colorado politics. They both know how to do it. They've both had pretty high-profile jobs. We knew this was going to be a title match. What have you thought so far?
Well, I haven't seen the Channel 12 debate yet, but I did watch the one on Monday night, and interesting debate. I mean, they definitely got in there and fought. The Romanoff camp thought that Coffman was too tough, but I have to say Romanoff seemed a little Wash Park laid back. That's where he moved from. But they acquitted themselves pretty well, and it was amazing to see that they actually were humans compared to what you see on the attack ads, because those attack ads are also really bad, and you wonder, Are any of those actually moving the dial at all, or could we again take all the money going into those and buy birth control for some other state?
Craig, wrap it up for us. What do you think?
Well, we have the abortion issue. Again, they're attacking Kaufman on that, so that's that chapter 1. But there are other chapters. This is a political odd couple, two professional politicians who cannot be more different. It's interesting how Kaufman attacks Andrew Romanoff for going to Ivy League schools, Harvard and Yale. I guess that's a winning issue. I would be proud if my son went to Harvard or Yale. Andrew Romanoff suffered the indignity of Politico calling him a fading star. It's always looked like Andrew's looking for the right spot, and he seems to be too much of a grasper. When has he had a real job? He got a law degree, but I'm not sure he's ever worked as a lawyer. So it will be fascinating to watch, and a lot of money certainly has been spent.
Let's get a quick take on this last one. More than 100 Denver sheriff deputies gathered outside the downtown jail on Monday to protest the lack of support from city officials. Deputies were met with opposition as community members expressed concern over recent incidents of misconduct. Alicia, this in a non-election year, this would have been much bigger news, but what did you think of this development of the Denver deputies?
What a PR disaster. I mean, they're being accused of horrible things, and some of them have proven to be true. I've seen the tapes, and yet they're out there saying that they're being treated poorly, that they're not being supported. Whose idea was this? It was a bad one.
Patty, I'm not really sure what all the deputies expected as support when you have so much video. It's not claims, it's not whatever. You're actually seeing video of this. What did you make of the rally?
Well, and then you also have the protesters come to remind everyone of just how badly just a few deputies have behaved, but enough to create those videos, to create endless amounts of study now in the city. I think Stephanie O'Malley has done a good job of listening to the sheriff's deputies. She's been accessible. She's really trying to clean up a mess that was not of her own making. So this was, yes, a PR disaster, worse than any behavior we've seen at a debate.
Craig, what's your quick take?
Well, it's sad because the sheriffs had my back for so many years, and I still appreciate them in the courts, but they're going through a PR disaster. There's plenty of blame to go around. I went to federal courtroom 902 where the Marvin Booker trial is about to be decided. That's interesting. And the bad design of the jail and that whole criminal justice center, to me, that's a shame what John Hickenlooper and James Mejia did. It could have and it should have been designed much better.
Eric, wrap it up for us.
Everyone else has used the word PR disaster. I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't echo Alicia's phrase here. Of course she's right. It was complete poor timing, wrong message, completely off key. It's what happens, Dominic, when you let a few bad apples or a number of bad apples define a department. And then the others get caught up. You know, people who are conscientiously trying to do their job get caught up and tarnished in the same image. It's why you need leadership to clean this up.
Let's get to our favorite part of the show, Disgrace of the Week. Patty, as always, start us off.
Well, I'm going to return to the debates, but this one is the one at Infinity Event Center in Glendale on Wednesday night, the free and equal election. I am all for letting third-party candidates be at debates. They were very complimentary about the Channel 12 debate. But unfortunately, all the time they're making fun of Beaupre and Hickenlooper, who did not show up. There was a candidate who is on the ballot, Paul Fiorino, who was not up there, and they said, oh, we couldn't find you on the web. Well, hello, he's on the ballot. He's on the Secretary of State's list. They couldn't have looked very hard, and it made the whole thing look like a mockery.
Craig.
A lot of political ads that we've all been watching, but one is distinguished for being disgraceful and bad and untrue. Channel 4 and Channel 9 have said that Michael Huttner, Democratic Governors Association ad, accusing Bob Beaupre of some kind of corruption when he had that bank. It's wrong, it's unfair, and it should be taken down.
Eric.
Staying with elections, last week a number of us around this table went after Doug Lamborn, and justifiably so. Going back to Colorado Springs here, they are in all likelihood about to send 2 new legislators to the Capitol, and it just continues the Colorado Springs brand. There's a guy, Gordon Klingenschmidt, who is the Republican candidate in House District 15, who is going to take any previous legislator from Colorado Springs and make them look sane and rational. I mean, this guy is so far out there, but yet he's the Republican in a Republican district and may well win. And then you have a Democrat in Senate District 11, the one where John Morse lost in a recall, Mike Merrifield. A number of us know him. He's a former state representative who was once quoted as saying that there was, quote, a special place in hell for advocates of charter schools. Just as excessive and just as extreme on his side. Colorado Springs ought to do better on both counts.
Alicia.
The Pentagon's 50th anniversary commemoration of the Vietnam War, it bears little to no resemblance to the war that Americans remember.
Say something nice about somebody, Patty?
Two major losses in the arts community this week. First, Henry Lowenstein, who directed the Bonfils Theater, then the Lowenstein Theater for decades, passed away at the age of 89. And then a shocking death yesterday. Randy Weeks, who is the president of the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, brings all the Broadway touring shows, Denver Center attractions, passed away unexpectedly, and he would have been really key to the revisioning of the Denver Performing Arts Complex that will soon go underway, so a big loss for the city.
Major icons in the cultural center. Craig.
A lot of people have come and gone through the Denver DA's office, but nobody better than Brooke Warnke. Her funeral was last Saturday. I'm proud that she was my mentor, my mother, and I was one of her children. What a great lawyer, what a great person, the late Brooke Warnke.
Eric.
Well, I guess the theme here is distinguished citizens of Denver who have passed on, and I would echo what both Craig and Patty said. In the same vein, we lost Regis Groff, longtime state senator, leader of the Democrats in the legislature during the 70s and 80s. And beyond that, just a good human being. A wonderful guy. Over the last few years, loved seeing him out at Rockies games, enjoying life. And it's a loss for the Groff family, and it's a loss for Colorado.
Here, Alicia.
I'm going to go parochial and give a tip of the hat to the photographers in the Denver Post photography department who shaved their heads in solidarity with a female photographer who has cancer and has lost her hair due to chemotherapy.
It's good to see. That's all the time we have tonight. Thanks for tuning in. In 2 weeks, Colorado Inside Out will broadcast at 7 p.m., an hour early, so that we can feature our special governor's race debate at 8 p.m. That's right. On Friday, October 24th, you can catch the final governor's race debate of the season on Channel 4 at 6 p.m. and on Channel 12 at 8 p.m. You won't want to miss it. For everyone here at Channel 12, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks very much for watching. Good night.
My name's Chris Missling, and I do the master control here at Channel 12. I run all the records and tapes for CIO, and I make sure that we're doing our closed captioning and streaming to the web. I always check the slate and make sure it matches the day and episode that we're taping for that day. This is our multi-viewer where I can watch the studio feed plus all of my recorders, and I can just watch all my different feeds all at once, plus the live signal which is going out over the air, which I'm also responsible for. They won't start until I'm rolling.
Thank you, Master Control.
Now we're in the show, and I'm just checking up there to make sure all my recorders are good and that everything looks good. I'm watching my live streaming here. There's going to be a delay, but it looks like it's working.
Hi, I'm Steven, and I'm here behind the scenes for CIO Friday. We are in the server room right now. This is the heartbeat. I don't know if you can hear it. You hear it? No? Okay. If anyone told you that they have the magic, they were wrong. This is where the magic is at, especially Dominic. If he said magic anywhere in his interview thing, that was wrong. Magic is here. So, when Chris, our master control operator, which you just saw, hits record on his computer, the software sends a signal to our video server. This is our video server here. These blues. are sexy. So that's how he records our shows here. That's how they record shows coming down from the satellites that they air later. And this is also where CIO plays out when we broadcast it. The other piece of equipment in here that is part of CIO is our switcher. This is our mainframe for the switcher. And if we look behind the switcher, you'll see the cables that feed it. These are all the camera cables down here that feed the switcher. So when the technical director, which was Tyler in our other episode, is hitting buttons, it's communicating to the mainframe and connecting one cable. Like if this was camera 1, it says route camera 1 through all the effects and then go out a different cable that then goes into our Omnion, which is the video server that we just saw. This is our air conditioning units, and I just come in and I just like stay here. I just do this for hours. I actually hug it. It's nice. But only I do that. No one else does that. Don't tell anybody. I shouldn't have done that. Don't put that on camera. This is what we call the blinky light room. If you watch these lights right here, these will start talking to us. You can find the answers to everything in the universe here, but you can't take it out of the room. It's weird. It's frustrating. We have air coming down out of the room that erases your memory.